In this video, I'll show you how to write complex numbers in trigonometric form. The first question reads, write 2 plus j3 in trigonometric form and polar form. The first thing that you want to do is write it out in polar form, because by writing it out in polar form, you find your radius and your angle. You can then use your radius and your angle and plug it into this formula. To go from rectangular form to polar form, you'll need to use these two formulas, where your number, your complex number, 2 plus j3, this 2 represents your a, and this number right here, the 3, represents your b. So let's substitute these numbers into this formula to find our r, and substitute these numbers as well into here to find out our theta. So we have radius is equal to 2 to the power of 2 plus 3 to the power of 2. 2 to the power of 2 is 4 plus 3 to the power of 2 is 9. That's the square root of 13. And I prefer to keep it as the square root of 13 as opposed to having it as a decimal. Next, I'm going to take these numbers and substitute them here, where I have theta is equal to tangent inverse of 3 over 2. I'm going to use my calculator for this. Tangent inverse 3 over 2 gives me 56.3. 56.3 degrees. Combining this number and this number, we end up with our radius of 13, and that represents the angle of 56.3 degrees. Now that I've found it in polar form, I can use this r and this theta to substitute it here. My r value is the square root of 13 bracket cosine of 56.3 plus j sine 56.3. And at this stage, you do not need to evaluate cosine 56.3, nor do you need to evaluate that. Once you have it in this format, you're done. That's it. Let's move on to question 2. In question 2, we're asked, write 6 times cosine 30 degrees plus j times sine 30 degrees in polar and rectangular form. This currently is in trigonometric form, and to go from trigonometric to polar form is very easy. You have to find your r value and your theta and write them down like this. 6 at an angle of 30 degrees. That's it. But to go from polar or trigonometric form to rectangular form, you need to use these two formulas. The first formula will help us find a, and the second formula will help us find b. Let's start off by finding a. A is equal to our radius of 6 times cosine of 30, and b is equal to 6 times sine of 30 degrees. Using our calculator for both of these calculations, 6 times cosine, and make sure that your calculator is in degrees, of angle 30 gives us 5.20, 5.20, or 3 times the square root of 3. And 6 times sine of 30 gives us 3. All rectangular complex numbers look like this. A plus jb, or some textbooks have it as a plus bi. And all we have to do is replace these numbers with what we found. 5.2 plus j times 3. This right here represents the rectangular form, this represents the polar form, and that is how to write complex numbers in trigonometric form.